Okay, today we are going to talk about Roadhog for a while, the last of the supportive off-tanks. And you probably heard that and went, Roadhog? Supportive? In what way? Well, we'll get to that. As always, I'm not going to talk about what any of Roadhog's buttons do. I'm going to assume you know what all of those do. We're just going to talk about how you play Roadhog in practical terms. So Roadhog is the last supportive off-tank because typically when people think about Roadhog, they think of him as basically just being a DPS that has a large model and a lot of hit points. But he is still a tank, believe it or not. He is still in the tank category, and there's a reason for that. So all tanks are about controlling space and denying the enemy team damage, fundamentally. And it's not immediately obvious how Roadhog does that, but the way Roadhog does that is by just being extremely threatening. Because you see Roadhog, and you think to yourself, oh shit, I better be careful about that dude, because he might hook me, and he might kill me. And that's how he does it. Because the hook is one of the scariest cooldowns in the game. Because you know if you get hooked, there's a high chance you die as a result of getting hooked. Either Roadhog kills you, or Roadhog and his team kills you. You're usually pretty lucky to be able to snake away, or you've got a really good ability to get away, like Fade. So what you do with Roadhog is that you typically will just stand up behind the main tank, which we will assume is Reinhardt because it is the most obvious and the straightforward way. Where you will usually just stand behind your Reinhardt, and you will look out from his shield, and you will shoot at the enemy Reinhardt. You will just sort of do damage, and then the thing that makes you really scary, and this is the reason why your Roadhog is a supportive off-tank, is because it just makes the Reinhardt's life easier, because you see the Reinhardt is already scary, but then you look behind the Reinhardt shield, and what do you see? You see Roadhog, and Roadhog is also scary at a way longer range than Reinhardt. So, when you see these two heroes together, that's really scary, and that's suddenly Reinhardt and Roadhog start walking towards you, and you have to start backing up. You have to you have to back away because Reinhardt's walking up to you, and you also have to try and get out of line of sight of Roadhog because you don't want him to hook you, because you know you probably die, especially if you're standing right next to a Reinhardt who's going to hit you when you arrive. So you support the tank like that. You make Reinhardt's life easier because you're also Roadhog's pretty good at damaging barriers because of his right click is really good against other barriers. His left click as well, but you are usually right clicking them. And just makes Reinhardt's life easier because suddenly the zone of threat is even scarier, and it just makes it way easier to control space like that because this very threatening Roadhog is behind you. And Roadhog doesn't have to be played this way because he does have a bodyguarding aspect to him as well, where he's good against flankers. So he's better, I think, against flankers like Tracer and Reaper, not so much Genji, because Genji has a few ways to sort of fuck with Roadhog, with deflect and dash and double jump and all of these ways. And Genji as well, he's pretty good against Genji as well. He's good against flankers, he's also good against the diving tanks, so Winston and D.Va. Because, I mean, Winston, you just, walk up to him, no fear, because what's he gonna do to you? And you start shooting him, and then you hook him, and then he's pretty much dead. D.Va, same deal, and you can also, hook her out of defense matrix, and then get some shots, and you can ruin her shift, and just drag her back if she tries to run away. Same deal with Winston, so he's good against them as well. But you see, so he has a bodyguarding aspect where you think, oh, there's a Tracer back here bullying my Mercy, so I'm gonna come and stand next to the Mercy, because now the Tracer has to respect that I'm standing next to the Mercy, and I can kill her, because I can hook her, and and then she will die. Now the thing is, though, is that Roadhog is only scary to flankers because he has the hook. And this is a thing with Roadhog in general. The threat of the hook can often be scarier than the hook itself. Because imagine that you're trying to protect your Mercy, and a Tracer is trying to make life difficult for Mercy, so you're trying to make life difficult for the Tracer as a result. Tracer is hard to hook because she's very mobile, she's very small, and she's going to be playing around you because you're scary to her. Unless you're really confident that you're gonna hook the Tracer, you should just not hook at all. Because, think about it, as long as you're standing next to her and she knows you have your hook up, she has to play around the fact that you have your hook up, and she has to be careful as a result of that, so she has to play more passively. If you throw a hook at the Tracer that is not very likely to land, and you're just kind of hoping you get her, suddenly Tracer goes, oh, for the next 8 seconds, Roadhog is not very scary anymore. So now, I can actually just go up and try to kill the Mercy again. Because this is how Roadhog's zone of threat changes like this, right? Because when his hook is off cooldown, Roadhog's zone of threat is the hook range. And that is an extremely scary zone of threat because it is almost certainly death. However, when you use the hook, your zone of threat shrinks significantly, because then it's basically point blank. Because suddenly the only things that you can use to kill people are your left click and your right click, and the right click's kind of finicky. So the right click range is not so scary, but like being point blank, still pretty scary. So, Roadhog's zone of threat is, he's one of the few heroes in the game where his zone of threat actually changes, depending on what he's doing. The hook itself, the threat of the hook is often more scary than the hook. Because if you're trying to, like, make life difficult for a Tracer, it's pretty unlikely you'll hook her, because she's hard to hook. Same deal with Genji. But if they know you have your hook, then they have to play around the fact that you have your hook. Same with, like, anything in general. When you use your hook, you want to be really deliberate with it. Because you see people throw out the hook constantly, like basically on cooldown, just like, we'll see if we get something. Shouldn't do that, because you're way less scary. Whenever your hook is on cooldown, you are less scary. So you want to use the hook deliberately, and you only really want to hook if you're confident that you're going to hook somebody, and that hooking that person will actually mean something, right? Because if I hook the D.Va, and then I shoot her once and she flies away, well, that didn't really do anything, did it? But if I hook the McCree, he dies. Like, that's just what happens to him. So, people that throw the hook out on cooldown, don't do that. You want to be really deliberate with it, because when it's on cooldown, you're not scary. When it's off cooldown, people have to play around the fact your hook is up. And you just want to use it deliberately. It's like, alright, this guy's gonna die if I hook him, or he's really likely to die anyway. And that's why Roadhog is supportive in this way. It's just because he himself is very threatening, and you have to respect his zone of threat, because if you don't, it's a really easy way to die. So, kind of similar to Zarya, he controls space largely by just doing damage, but he also has hard crowd control, which he's one of the few heroes in the game that has hard crowd control, and thus he gets to be scary to some people that would not normally be super concerned, because, like, he can interrupt ultimates with it, right? Like, McCree comes out and just, like, starts using Deadeye in front of you. Nah, that was really stupid. Reaper appears right next to you, or, like, starts Wraith forming in, and you're like, oh, I wonder what he's gonna do, and then you just hook him, and then you cancel Death Blossom. Genji comes in with dashes in with Dragon Blade, you just hook the Genji away from the person, even if you don't kill the Genji, which you probably won't actually, because he's squirrely like that. You make him waste a shit ton of time off of his Dragon Blade, so it's like super annoying. And then, he also has one of the better defensive ultimates in the game, because Whole Hog is basically, you just decide that you don't have that team fight anymore, because it's impossible to really push through it. You used to be able to if you had, when D.Va's defense matrix was, longer, because then you could eat basically the entire Whole Hog. That doesn't work anymore. Now when Roadhog starts using Whole Hog, unless you kill or crowd control the Roadhog, the team fight stops happening. Like, you see them start coming in with Sound Barrier, you go, nah, I'd rather you didn't. Genji comes in with Dragon Blade, you can just, like, start ulting him, push him away. He has to try to deflect you, bare minimum, and then, like, he's still getting pushed away after that ends, and if nothing else, you waste a ton of time on his Dragon Blade. Reinhardt's trying to, like, slowly walk his way in, you just ult, you break his shield, and you completely just kill any momentum he was trying to generate. And it charges really quickly, because Take a Breather is really strong, and Roadhog builds up his ultimate really quickly. He's also just, like, always doing damage. Because you can just always be shooting at people, and you're always doing something. Then you, like, hook a tank or something like that, you get a big chunk of ult off that. Because you can move while you're using Take a Breather, you can get away with just sort of walking up and taking damage, and then walking away. So, like, you can just you don't want to just take damage for no reason. Like, you can walk forward aggressively to try and, like, hook somebody, and then, you know, hopefully kill the person, but if not, well, and even if you do or you don't, you can just take a breather and walk away, because you've got 50% damage reduction, and you're healing 300 HP while you're walking away. Roadhog is a relatively forgiving hero, because you can just be standing behind Reinhardt and go, oh, if I just, like, move up a little bit, I can try and hook this dude, and then, oh, don't mind me, just leaving now. Just as a general thing with Take a Breather, if you're getting shot at while you're using Take a Breather, which you probably will be, turn away from the enemy team while you're using Take a Breather, because think about the way Roadhog's model is, right? He's not built like a snowman, right? Like, his head doesn't rest on the top of his body, it's slightly forward. So if you turn away from the enemy team, they can't shoot you in the head. So you take less damage. Well, they can shoot you in the head, but it's, like, really, really difficult. And you just take less damage. And, like, yeah, you're already not taking very much damage because of the damage reduction on Take a Breather. But why? Just take less damage, right? Just, like, turn away from the enemy team and take even less damage. And the Roadhog, even though, like, he isn't a shield tank, right? Like, he doesn't have a shield in any way. He's not even, like, a bad shield, like Winston. He just doesn't have a shield. But you can still shield for people, because you are still just kind of a big guy, right? So imagine we're standing next to Mercy, again, and then we see Soldier start using Tac Visor. We just stand in front of Mercy, and then suddenly he can't shoot Mercy anymore because she's standing behind you. And it's not a big deal to you, because even if he's using Tac Visor, like, he has to shoot you a lot to actually kill you, and then you use Take a Breather, and then he's just not killing you again, you heal back up. Mercy's probably healing you as well if she's hiding behind you. You can still block for people if you're playing Roadhog, you just have to actually physically use your body. And people don't really do that, because when they pick Roadhog, they just kind of basically think, I'm playing a DPS right now, and they play that way, where they play really selfishly. All of the tanks are tanks. Like, all of the tanks' number one priorities are protect your team, right? Control space and protect your team. Roadhog is the same way. It's just not immediately obvious how Roadhog protects his team, right? Like, you see Reinhardt and you think to yourself, oh yeah, he obviously just holds his shield in front of people, right? Zarya obviously bubbles people. Orisa puts her shield in front of people. Roadhog doesn't have the obvious way of doing this. It's threatening presence and then body blocking for people if you have to. And that's basically it. And then a lot of the rest of playing Roadhog is just trying to kill people. Like, he is the aggressive tank. You spend a lot of your, well, he's one of the aggressive tanks, because obviously the diving tanks are also pretty aggressive as well. But Roadhog is, if you're not trying to protect your backline from a flanker or something like that, you're basically always looking to try and kill people. So, he is very much like a DPS. He is, like, somewhere between a DPS and a tank, but he is still a tank. He still is meant to try and protect his team, and he does still have one of the best not one of the best, he has one of the better defensive ultimates in the game, because you just decide a teamfight doesn't happen anymore, and just cancel out certain ultimates. You can also occasionally try and make a big hero play that usually ends up just actually you killing your team, where, like, D.Va threw her ultimate in. You can hook the ultimate out of line of sight, take a breather, and start walking away. The ult won't actually kill you because of the way the damage reduction works. Because D.Va's ultimate point blank does 1,000 damage. Roadhog has 600 health, and take a breather is 50% damage reduction. So, you can survive self-destruct quite easily. Unless, obviously, you're not at full HP, in which case, yeah, get fucked. But even then, if you're just, like, a little bit away, like, you survive self-destruct. What usually happens, though, is you try to make the big hero play, and then you turn around and you're like, oh no, and then you kill your entire team, which is what more often than not happens. But you can try, you know. If you're on a map with a pit, that's pretty easy. Then you can just drag it into the pit. This is part of playing Roadhog as well, where you do have a displacement ability, and as a result, you can do some cheesy stuff and just get kills with it, because you can just sort of, you got a pit next to wherever you are, you know, any control, basically all control maps like this. You just wait here, someone peeks the corner, you hook them, and off they go. And there's not much they can do about that. And then if it's another Roadhog, you watch him try to hook you, but then he just, like, hits the floor in front of you, and you're like, Roadhog is a very fun hero to play. He used to be more fun when he was, did more damage, and it was very easy to one-shot people. You can still one-shot, like, a 200 health hero as Roadhog, because you can just hook them, and then take a step into them, and then shoot, plus melee, just for good measure, and that one-shot's a 200 health hero. Provided you actually, like, you know, aim correctly, because they can still be point blank, and you're just, like, miss half the pellets on them still, because it wasn't aimed properly, but, like, if you hook someone, you just take a step into them, then shoot, you one-shot a 200 health hero. You don't... And then melee for good measure. Even if you don't think you have to melee them anyway, because it doesn't lose you anything to melee them, and then, you know, I've seen a Roadhog be like, I've been the Roadhog where I've been like, I don't need to melee them, and then they walk away. And I'm like, should have meleeed. But that's kinda it with Roadhog. He's a very simple hero. He doesn't have, he's very light on the decision-making end of the tanks, because most tanks are pretty light mechanically, and then they are largely all about decision-making. Roadhog is not so much that way. He is much more heavily shifted on the mechanics side, as opposed to game sense and decision-making. Obviously, that still factors in, because it factors into every hero, at least somewhat, but Roadhog is much lighter on that. It's largely about hooking fools and then killing them, but not hooking so much that, like, but still hooking deliberately so that you don't want to just, like, throw it out constantly. You're still trying to be deliberate with it. And, you know, Roadhog's a pretty easy hero to play. Like, even on the mechanical side, he's relatively easy to play because the hook is fucking huge. You know, he has a shotgun, so he's not exactly precision-based hero. He can position rather aggressively for a tank, because Take a Breather is just, like, really hard to kill Roadhog through. Unless you interrupt him or, like, debuff him with, like, an Ana Grenade or something like that. So, he can get away with a lot of stuff. The issue I find with people playing Roadhog is always just that they don't think they're playing a tank at all. They just think they're playing a DPS hero, and they play very selfishly. No. You are still playing a tank. Like, you are still meant to either, like, stay with your front line and, like, pressure the enemy team by being very threatening and, like, shooting their barriers and stuff like that. And then just, you know, if the fight's coming that you don't want, you decide you don't have that fight. And then if you're not doing that, you're sitting with your backline protecting them from the flankers and the divers, because Roadhog is really good at that. There's a thing in general with heroes that have, like, a very strong counter-picking element to them. Winston players do this as well, where, like, you pick Roadhog and you think to yourself, alright, I'm picking Roadhog because I'm countering their Winston or I'm countering their Diva. Winston players do this as well, where they think, alright, I'm gonna pick Winston because I'm countering their Genji and their Tracer who are flanking my backline. So they pick them for then that reason, and then they don't do that, right? Like, they just don't even bother. They just kind of play by default anyway. Like, you pick Winston and you're like, I'm gonna protect my backline from the Genji, and then you watch them dive into the enemy team while your backline gets killed by Tracer, right? Roadhog can be the same way, where, like, you pick Roadhog thinking, I'm gonna counter their Winston, and then all you do is keep walking forward trying to hook their front line while your backline is getting murdered by the Winston, right? Like, you have to actually do the thing you were picking the hero for. And it's like, you know, I say that and you're probably like, well, yeah, obviously if I picked the hero to counterpick someone, I'm gonna counter them. No, that, like, almost never happens, honestly. Whenever somebody picks Winston to counter Genji, because he's killing your backline, I feel like I never see the Winston actually kill the Genji. Like, they always just keep jumping into the enemy team. Like, you have to just play really boring at that point. Like, you have to sit with your backline and just reconcile that you're not gonna do that much, because what you're doing is very specific. But you have to do it if that's what you think you need to do, right? You can't pick Winston being like, I'm gonna counter their Genji, and then think, I'm still gonna dive into the enemy team. No, you have to sit with your backline if you're gonna protect them from the Genji, right? If you pick Roadhog to counter Winston, you can't be like, alright, I'm gonna go forward and try to hook their front line again. No, like, you have to sit with your backline and save your hook to kill the people trying to kill your backline, right? Like, that's how it has to be. People don't do that. They just don't do that. I'm gonna pick... It's like the Widowmaker thing, right? If I don't get a pick, I'll switch. Never do. Oh yeah, I'm gonna change to Roadhog so I can counter their Winston. Never does it. Just plays default Roadhog the entire time anyway. That really bothers me when people do that. Roadhog is a really simple hero to play, though. you help your front line. You know, you be threatening, you try and pressure the enemy team. If people are pressuring your back line, you help make life easier for the back line by sitting fruit with them. And you think to yourself, alright, unless I'm really certain I'm gonna hook somebody, I'm just gonna save the hook. Because as long as I have my hook, they need to respect the fact that I have my hook. If I don't have my hook, they think to themselves, well, he's not a hero for 8 seconds. People also get really greedy when they're playing Roadhog. Like, Roadhog, I feel like, is one of the heroes most prone to overextending, trying to finish off a kill, right? Where you'll hook, like, the Winston and get him down to, like, get him down to, like, 100 health. And then you'll see the Roadhog running after the Winston, like, I'm gonna get this Winston. And then they just run into 6 people. And then they're like, oh, fuck. Like, you've got a lot of leeway because Take a Breather is really strong, but it doesn't make you immortal. Like, you do still have to think about what you're doing and not overextend still. Even though Roadhog does have a lot of allowance, even though he's he's a completely immobile hero, right? But he does have a lot of leeway because Take a Breather is a really strong ability. I do wish they would rename this ability, because it made sense when you couldn't move that it was called Take a Breather. Now you can move. You're not really taking a breather if you're still moving around. I feel like it should be called One for the Road instead, because that's just great, right? Doesn't that make so much more sense? Whatever. There was like one other thing I'm pretty sure that I was gonna say. Oh yeah. Reaper. Conventional wisdom is that Reaper counters Roadhog, which is true, because Reaper counters all the tanks, at least theoretically. But Roadhog is the only tank, really, that has a chance of fighting Reaper. It used to be that D.Va was really good against Reaper, but now Defense Matrix has been nerfed. She's significantly worse against Reaper. Like, Reaper kills D.Va at this point. Roadhog can still kill Reaper, right? Like, you just have to... It's one of those things where when you see Reaper on the enemy team and you're playing Roadhog, the Reaper has to basically always be your #1 priority. And you have to always be looking for the Reaper. Because you can kill the Reaper, right? Like, you see the as long as you're keeping track and you're like, oh, here comes Reaper. If you just go left, right click, hook, left click, melee, the Reaper dies, right? Like, even though you can't one-shot him, as long as you warm him up a little bit and then hook him, he still dies. Very least, he has to try and Wraith form away from you, right? Like, he can't kill you at that point because he's at, like, 20 hit points or something. You just have to make sure, you have to focus on the Reaper. Because this is why Reapers end up killing Roadhog, right? Because Reaper still has to respect Roadhog's hook the same as every other hero in the game, right? Like, the hook is still scary to Reaper. The thing is that the Reaper will sit over in the shadows, like, looking at the Roadhog, like, oh, that's scary. Oh, what if he hooks me? And then he'll see you do this. And then he'll go, oh. Then I just walk up and kill you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can try and just, like, walk away from him, but, like, he'll run after you. Like, he'll run after you, and if he's paying attention and, like, notices you take a breather, he'll stop shooting, wait for it to end, start shooting again, and he'll kill you. Like, he'll kill you unless your hook comes off cooldown in time or your team helps you, right? Like, you just it's one of those things that you have to go to yourself, alright, I know he's there, and I have to respect the fact he's there and can kill me, so I have to pay attention to that, or he'll kill me. And I have to kill him before he kills me, basically. Like, Reaper does counter Roadhog, but Roadhog is the only tank in the game that actually has a way to, like, deal with Reaper, really. Because none of the other tanks really do. Unless Zarya's at, like, 100 charge, and she has her bubble ready for herself, because then she can just, like, kill the Reaper before he can kill her. But that's kinda it. Like, Winston's got no chance. You can just, like, bubble dance, and then that's it. But, like, the Reaper isn't scared of Winston. Reinhardt, he's not scared of Reinhardt either, because he just, like, puts his gun in Reinhardt's face, and he'll life-steal off the Reinhardt enough that the Reinhardt won't kill Reaper first, right? And even then, Reaper can always just leave if he feels threatened, because he's got Wraith form, right? D.Va, she can't do it. Like, she needs help from her team to actually kill Reaper. Orisa, like, definitely can't do it. All she can do is bubble dance and hope with Fortify, but her head is fucking huge. Like, Reaper just, like, tears through Orisa. Roadhog's, like, the only tank in the game that realistically has a chance to kill Reaper because he has hard crowd control. That's the thing that's really strong about Roadhog, right? Like, every hero in the game has something that's unfair about them, right? The thing that's unfair about Roadhog is that he has this long-range hard CC that is also a displacement. And then he also still does good damage, right? And Take a Breather is also pretty unfair. But, like, the thing that's unfair about Roadhog is the hook. So that's the thing you want to try and leverage with Roadhog, which is probably fairly self-explanatory. But, you know, you can't take it for granted. You can't just be like, hook, because then you're just not scary. Like, really good Roadhog players know that the hook is scary, yes, but the threat of the hook is also scary. And then they play off both sides. Because you're trying to protect the Mercy, you waste your hook trying to hook the Tracer when it wasn't feasible. She just kills Mercy now, because you can't stop her, right? The good Roadhog player goes, alright, I'll just zone the Tracer by being scary. And I'm not gonna hook her unless I'm really sure I'm gonna hook her. And then she can't do anything, because she has to play passively, because I'm standing right here. And that's basically how you play Roadhog. He is, like, the simplest tank in the game, because he is very light on the decision-making. It's just, sit with your front line, make the front line's life easier, be threatening, be scary, tell the enemy team that you don't want to fight today, because you feel like you might not win that fight. Sometimes you get to just, like, pin someone in the corner and really fuck them, and that feels good, but usually you're using it to say, no, I don't want to fight. If you need to protect your backline, you sit with the backline, and, you know, you have to actually do that. Like, you know, don't be the guy that's like, alright, I'm going to protect the backline, and then never does that. You have to actually do that. That would be a conscious decision. It's basically how you play Roadhog. Really, pretty simple hero to play. Very light game sense and decision-making side. Heavier on the mechanics side. Though still pretty light on the mechanics side. It's not that hard to hook somebody. Pretty easy tank to play. Definitely the tank to play, if you want to try and carry the game. Like, he's one of the better carrying tanks in the game, up there with, like, Zarya. Because he has the most, like, direct agency over the game. Do not pick Roadhog as a main tank, though, right? If there's no other tank on your team, change off of Roadhog, because you do need an actual tank. Roadhog is not an actual tank. If you don't have a main tank with you, Roadhog is not very scary, because you can just kill the Roadhog, because he's just a big sponge at that point, right? Also, that's the thing with Roadhog. Try not to be an ult battery for the enemy team, because I have won games where literally just their Roadhog was really bad at positioning, and I got to farm my ultimate off of him. Like, don't do that. Like, yeah, you're hard to kill, but don't forget, you taking damage still gives the enemy team ult charge. Don't just take damage for no reason, right? Like, you have to be conscious of the fact that you can be feeding them a lot of ult charge, and you don't want to do that. But yeah, Roadhog's pretty simple. Don't pick him as a main tank. If you have no other tank, change to a main tank. If the other tank is something like Zarya, still change to a main tank. Because 2 off tanks don't account for a main tank, right? Roadhog Orisa, still pretty weak. Roadhog Zarya, really weak, right? Like, change to a main tank. If it's 2 off tanks, that's not enough. Change to a main tank. Don't keep playing Roadhog just because you want to play Roadhog. And the game ended. That's fine. We're basically done. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. And I hope you found the video helpful.